There's a great deal of interest in geothermal generation of electricity these days. And a couple of weeks ago, the federal government announced $40.5 million for an Indigenous-owned geothermal project in Fort Nelson, BC. And we're going to talk to John Ebell, who is the project manager at Barkley Project Group. So welcome to the interview, John.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
John, why don't we start with an overview of the project, please?
Sure. The project is being built on an existing gas field. It's one of the older and most abundant gas fields in British Columbia. And the project is, through that years of gas production, many years, almost 60 years of gas production, we have a lot of data on the resource. So with that, we know we have a geothermal resource there. And so it will be, it'll right now we're going through and so we need to prove that resource. So that we're going through this stage right now is in the proof of concept stage. And we currently have a drill rig on site, and we will be drilling that well, one well, a brand new well that's a geothermal specific full-size well. Will be the largest geothermal well in Canada currently. And we're going to use an existing gas well that exists on this well pad as the disposal well, as the injector for the fluid and then we're going to run a 30-day pump test. And from that we will know the real details of the resource.
Can you explain the difference between the binary geothermal technology and the standard technology, please?
Sure. The binary geothermal technology, let's start with standard, what they've used around the world. When you have very hot temperatures, you put water down into those holes and they flash into steam. The steam comes shooting up and under a lot of pressure, and it spins a turbine, and you'll see the big bellows of steam coming out of those power plants in pictures of Iceland, etc., around the world or down in the United States. Binary pulls the heat up to the surface, and it runs it through a heat exchanger, and it injects that heat back down into the reservoir again. In that heat exchanger, that heat is transferred to a secondary fluid that boils at a low temperature. That fluid then expands, and it turns the turbine. And then as it comes out of the turbine, it is then condensed again and recycled. So you have binary being you have two cycles of fluid moving, both independent from each other, both never see the light of day.
Is the binary technology more efficient?
I would say probably is, actually, because it's a very refined power plant that the secondary fluid is traveling around. Whereas when you have high temperatures, you're able to just blast that heat up against the turbine, and the turbine itself will become quite corroded, and over time it won't be running as efficiently. But so I think there's more control in a binary power plant. Yes.
Now, this particular plant is going to be 7 to 15 megawatts in generating capacity, which is that's a fair-sized plant, is it not?
On a British Columbia scale, no, it's a pretty small plant. Right now, we've talked about the 7 megawatt size because that is about the domestic demand in the Fort Nelson region. So the Fort Nelson region is an isolated grid. It's not connected to British Columbia's power grid. And currently all the homes and buildings in the region use about 7 megawatts. There are industrial demands as well beyond that. We may or may not be able to supply those demands, not because we don't have the resource, but because their cost of energy for industrial needs is quite low. And I'm too sure, we're not positive yet whether we can compete with that, with those low prices. There's potential for maybe up to 75 megawatts in the Clarke Lake field of power. That'll be getting a larger size plant. But 7 megawatts is a great place to start.
Okay, well, how much will you be able to produce electricity for?
It will be competitive with any of the other clean energy sources around. You know, it probably won't be competitive with well, it will be competitive with the Site C dam costs. You know, given how expensive that is getting. But yeah, it'll be competitive with the rates that you and I pay in our homes currently.
So that would be about 9.3 cents a kilowatt hour. So you'll be in that $90 to $100 a megawatt hour range.
Yeah, let's go with around $100 a megawatt hour right now. Yeah, we're not certain, of course, because we've got a little bit more work to do there.
Now, this is the first plant of its kind in Canada, I understand. Are you anticipating that as you, sort of learn how to do this, that there will be operating efficiencies and so on, and that you'll be able to bring the price down over time?
Yeah, good question. I would like to say that there's a number of plants that are moving forward in Canada right now. Particularly a notable would be the Deep project in Saskatchewan. And there's one in Alberta. There's a couple of in Alberta that are moving forward. And all of us are looking at ways of decreasing the costs of development. It's a very important part of this work that's being done. And it's an important reason that we are receiving dollars from the federal government as well. We are anticipating that there is an economy of scale for sure. We are exploring the use of the oil and gas industry, the energy sector's services, and how that is affecting our price, and what we're able to do with their expertise, and where we're able to push them as far as costs go. So yeah, cost is a big point of focus right now for these projects.
Sure, and it's quite common with all technologies, but particularly energy. Costs are always a little higher when you're doing the first one than when you're doing the 100th one.
Exactly.
Sure. Now, final question, John. What, in your opinion, is the potential in BC, and maybe in Alberta too, if you can address this, but what is the potential for geothermal development using this binary technology?
Well, there have been a number of studies that vary a bit on what we can produce in British Columbia with geothermal energy. We're lucky that we understand the Clarke Lake field very well. However, but there's a lot more resource available. It just hasn't been explored yet. So I think that geothermal is going to have an important role to play in some regions of the province where it is the appropriate clean energy source. There'll be, there's always heat in the ground, and that heat can be used for direct use heat as well. But as far as electrical generations, I think that northeast region is going to be very important going forward. And but there's also resources up in the Pemberton area and other volcanic regions of British Columbia as well. So I can't put a number on it. That information is available through Geoscience BC, through Kengia. Those studies have been completed, but it's going to play a role, and it won't be displacing large-scale hydro anytime.
Great. John, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, I'm happy to speak about it.